Hi, Opulent Straws here. As you may be able to tell by my crusty, dusty, sticky, icky voice, I am sick. Hooray! Once again, I have been brutally attacked by some winter cold, so I do apologise if I sniffle every now and then. But the video. I put up a poll and most of you said that you wanted to see me do a shading tutorial. Honestly, I didn't mind because I thought it meant less editing for me. But then I quickly realised this was not the case because I had to do the voiceover unscripted and there was a lot of... It's not just divided up in colour, shading, and this has nothing on it, so I don't know why that's there. So yeah. Oh, she looks so sad. Shut up. Oh my god. Yeah. It was fun. But luckily I managed to record it before my cold got too bad, so I should sound a little better than how I do now. Anyway, on with the ProCreate shading tutorial. So I was thinking when I was shading this after I did the colour, so let's just pretend this didn't happen. This is what I've got so far, and I'm liking it. I think it looks pretty good. So first of all, I need to think of what colour to shade in. In digital art, if you shade your characters in black, like let's bring back this shading for a second, and let's just lower the brightness so it's black. Do you see the difference that makes? So here it is when it was purple, and here it is when it's black. It brings out the colour more if it has another colour. It makes it more interesting to look at. It makes it less flat, if you know what I mean. Even if I lower the opacity on this, still it's a bit flat. If I add the colour back, it makes it look slightly better. So that's one tip, shade everything in colour. If you really don't feel like going with a very vibrant colour and don't really want to ruin the colours of your piece, then you could go with brown. That's an option. You could do a very grey purple or blue or green or whatever colour you're going for. You could do it very grey. So if I just lower the saturation, as you can see look, that is not a very vibrant colour. It doesn't have to be vibrant, it just has to have a slight tint to it, otherwise it's a bit boring if it's just black. So that's my tip. Another tip is I was originally going to shade her in blue because, well, it's quite a different colour to red. Also, her eyes are blue. I thought it would match. But if I change this to blue, like that, if it's blue, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just a slight imbalance here because, like, on this neck, it brings out this sort of brown, muddy colour. It's fine, but shading, like this dragon, she's red, right? She's red. Red is a warm colour. So if blue's a cold colour, then I think it would be better to shade her in a warmer colour since she's red and that's a warm colour. So basically, when you're shading, if your piece is mainly warm colours, shade it in a warm colour. If your piece is mainly cold colours, shade it in a cold colour. So for instance, if I turn her blue, if she's blue, or bluish, and now we look at the shading, it looks nice, right? Like, it brings out the blue, it makes it look good, and her eyes really stand out, and so do these little things on her necklace. But again, if it's red, it brings this slight muddy look, and it's almost if you shaded it with black. It doesn't look great. So while adding colour may look good, you need to decide on which colour is best. So I would just recommend shading warm colours with warm colours and cool colours with cool colours. It just looks a lot better. It's something that I've only learnt recently, so don't be afraid. Don't feel ashamed if you didn't know. I only learned it recently. So yeah, I think next I should probably cover how you actually make a layer in ProCreate in particular, because that's the thing that I use, and loads of my viewers also use ProCreate. It's a great website. It isn't free, it does cost money, but it's only a little bit to pay to start off. There's no like monthly payment or anything. Also, I do think it is quite advanced and lots of artists and illustrators do use it. It's also great for tutorials like this one, so. But anyway, how to actually make a layer on ProCreate. So if we just pretend, I'm just going to duplicate this piece. If we just pretend that these layers, I don't know, I hadn't done them yet. I don't really have anything to go with. So what you want to do is you have your line art layer right here at the top. You have your color layer, which you've completed, and you have your sketch layer underneath that, but it's hidden because you don't need it anymore. So what you want to do is you want to select your color layer, click this little plus in the corner of your layer menu, and that will add a new layer above it. Now you want to press the little N in the corner of the layer, and now this will open up the opacity and blending menu. You want to scroll up for shading. You can either do linear burn or multiply. These are the two that I like to go with. So multiply is softer, so I tend to use it with happy pieces or less harsh pieces, if you know what I mean. So for instance, this piece, it's quite happy. As I said, it's not really a sinister piece, it's not really a poster or anything, it's pretty calm and serene. So if I, that brush is way too big. If I just add a little bit of shadow with multiply. I haven't lowered the opacity or anything, I'm just showing you the difference between multiply and linear burn. So there's my sort of half shading. So I'm just gonna click on the M and slide it down to linear burn. Can you see the difference that this makes? This is darker and more red and intense. This one is a bit more, it's softer, even though the opacity hasn't changed, and it's just a bit more gentle. So if we go back to one of my dark posters, like this one, Darkstalker Legends poster, as you can see, I used linear burn on Darkstalker because I wanted it to be more harsh, more sinister, more scary, all of those words. But for this piece, this is the opposite. This is not harsh or sinister or scary, so I'm using multiply. So now that I've shown you the difference between multiply and linear burn, you can choose what you're doing depending on whether the character is good, bad, whether the composition is supposed to be intimidating or happy or sad. So yeah. Also, when it comes to shading and also sort of the quote-unquote theme of a poster, when I keep on saying a scary poster, a harsh poster, and a sinister poster, okay, all of these fall under the category of harsh shading. At least that's what I do. Well, if I have a happy poster, that falls under the category soft shading. But you may be asking, what does sad come under? So if you're drawing a poster or a scene where everyone is pretty sad and everyone seems to be sad and there's just a general grey vibe, I would not go with linear burn. I wouldn't put it next to the angry or sinister version. I'd put it with the happy because, again, it has a softer, more gentle feel, and it brings out the sadness in it, I guess is the best way to put it. So soft shading is happy, sad. Harsh shading is sinister, intimidating, scary, all of that. And it is coming up to Halloween, so you know, maybe you should start doing more of that. But anyway, so you need to choose whether you're doing multiply, linear. So I'm going to go with multiply because again, it falls under the happy category. So we're going to lower the opacity just by taking this little bar and sliding it down. I personally don't really like having my shading super light, so if I go to 37%, you see how light that is. It's just my art style. I don't really like having super light shadows. I just think it's hard to see them, and sometimes it's hard to distinguish the shadows from the color. But I like to go with around 50-60%. Okay, so we've established how to make a shading layer, what color to use, how to make the settings on it. Now we need to actually figure out where to put our shadows and how to shade it in a successful way. So let's just say, where is your light source coming from? shadows are cast when a light source hits an object. So let's just say our light source, in most of my happy pieces, it's normally in the corner. Let's just put our light source here. Obviously you don't have to draw a light source or a sun or anything, I'm just doing it for your benefit and visual aid, I guess. So what I want to do is I want to go back to my shading layer. I want to get my color, and let's just start off with the head. So the head is a little bit raised from the neck, so it's obviously going to be casting a shadow on the neck. So let's just add a small shadow here. Another important tip that when it comes to shading is the closer an object is to the surface it's casting a shadow on, the smaller the shadow will be. So if you have your hand floating over a table and it's casting a shadow, if you move your hand close to the table or like put it right on top, the shadow will be small. If you move your hand further away, the shadow will be bigger. It will stretch further away from your hand. This is a good example. So the head, it's not that far away from the neck, so it can only cast a small shadow, just a thin shadow. You might also want to do under the head. Don't be afraid to use your eraser if you just went out of lines, that's okay. And in my line art I did add extra little lines on the horns and things, so that can also be an aid shading, like that. You also, since the ear, it has a flap, you want to do under the ear. Also maybe on the underside like that. This little cheek horn, it's kind of casting a shadow on the ear, so you might want to add a little, just a little, maybe not that far. There we go. Now we can shade under the horns and on the horns. So again, I added these little lines, but just try and follow the general shape or curve of the object. And the ear is going to be casting a shadow on the horn again. So if our light source is coming from here, it's going to sort of cast it to the side. So like this. Simple as that. So now under the horns, light source coming from up there. This is going to be under, and then it's sort of going to curve in and stop. Then it's going to cast this part of the horn, it's going to go sideways, like this. Okay, so we've got our first few shadows in place. You can also do under the eyebrows, just to connect with the eye, on these spiky little things coming off of her head. Light source is up there, so that's going to be underneath. This one's going to be underneath. This one's sort of going to be here. This one's sort of going to be on the side. And then all of these are going to be on the side as well. Alright, so that's the top half of her face shaded. Now I'm going to move down to her neck. Now we get to this problem. As I said before, I would tell you how to fix it. So if you're shading close to the edge of your piece and it goes out the lines and it looks purple and wrong, or if you're on white, it still looks like it looks wrong, it looks weird, and you don't want it to go out the lines, but you can't be bothered to just rub it all out. There is an easier way to do this. So if I've gone out the lines, what you do is you click on your layers and you select your shading layer, you click on it again, and you click clipping mask. Now since your shading layer should be above your color layer, it should have this little arrow going down, which means it's clipped to your color layer. So that means if I rub out some of my color layer, it will rub out as well because there's a gap in this. So this will make sure that it doesn't go out the lines and just generally make your life a lot easier. Now you're gonna do the wings. So wings, when they're open like this with dragons, since I draw Wings of Fire dragons, I suspect that a couple of my viewers read Wings of Fire or want to know how to draw dragons. Of course, I will come up with tutorials on how to draw dragons or how to make life easier for drawing them in the future. But as you requested, and as I requested, I guess, I'm doing a shading tutorial today, so this is just a tip for drawing dragons and shading their wings, because obviously they're dragons, they're not really real creatures, so we can't just find a reference or look outside and see one and think, oh, that's how the shadows are cast when their wings are open. No, we have to sort of make it up based on other creatures like bats or birds. So what I do when I do my dragon wings open like this, I just sort of emphasize the folds in their wings by going out and then with these little webs, like a spider web almost, like this. Just make little webs, like spider's web. Follow the line of the wings, follow the fingers of the wings, and down again, and maybe like this. Now we've shaded sort of what I call the foreground of the piece, so I'm just going to do a quick little thing. That's the foreground, but if we go in with a dark colour, this is what's in the background. This is what's furthest away from the camera. This leg is far away from the camera. It's behind her other legs. This one too, it's behind her other hind leg. So that's in the background. Her tail, well, this part, it's behind all of her legs. So that means it's in the background too, it's far away from the camera. This entire wing, this is all in the background because, just get rid of this. That is because it is far away from the camera. It's behind her other wing and her head and her neck. So that's all in the background. What I do is I go to my line art layer, I click it, and then I select reference. So now it says layer 3 reference on it. Now you hold where your colour is, click it and drag it to where your piece is. You hold your finger where you want to fill it and keep your finger there, because once it's filled, keep your finger there, don't lift it off. So now you want to slide and adjust the threshold. So obviously if you go all the way, it's going to fill everything. We don't want that. So slide it back a bit, just so it's like that. There we go. So now the parts that are in the background have just been completely filled in. Now this is fine, like there's nothing wrong with this. But what you can do is you can go to your eraser just to add a bit more detail. And you can gently just erase where the light source would be hitting it. Now if you want to add sort of a soft glow to the shading, click this little magic wand in the corner, top left corner, and select Gaussian blur. You don't have to do this, it's just if you want more of a glowy effect like that. I think it's pretty nice. I mean, I didn't do it for this piece, as we can go back to the original. I didn't do it, I kept it sharp, but I'm gonna do it for this just to show you what it looks like. So that is how I personally shade in this software based on what I have learned over my 2 years of digital art. Everyone has their own little tips and quirks when it comes to art, so just do what feels right to you and never give up. Having the patience is probably one of the hardest things when it comes to art or any talent in general. I'm sure anyone with time could learn to draw dragons or cats even though they've never attempted it before. But loads of us, including myself, give up sometimes. We feel frustrated because the outcome of our piece doesn't turn out how we wanted. I'm currently teaching myself how to draw humans, and I'm not gonna lie, I have lost count of the amount of times I have deleted a piece when I barely started because I just got so overwhelmed with the frustration and impatience to get it right. I think the best thing to do when that happens is just take a step away, go get some fresh air, cuddle with your pets, watch a movie with your family, anything like that. Then when you feel rejuvenated and calm, come back to it. And remember to never give up, as corny as it sounds. Even a moody teenager like myself can say that it is true. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Sorry it came out a tad later than I expected. But as always, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and have a wonderful week.